Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to completely unpack the wild evolution of sports on screen. We're talking about a massive journey here, going from those earnest, campy Hollywood myths of the 1980s straight into the shiny, tightly controlled PR machines of modern streaming, and finally landing on today's gritty, high-tech search for actual truth. Buckle up, because the way we consume sports stories has totally transformed.
Just think about this massive shift we've seen. On one side, you have an era where athletes were literally out there doing their own stunts just for the sheer love of the spectacle, like Pele's legendary cinematic bicycle kick. Fast forward to today, and we're looking at a multi-million-dollar corporate PR machine. Every single frame of a modern sports documentary is practically put under a microscope by corporate boards to protect their brand. The contrast is absolutely wild, and figuring out how we got from point A to point B actually tells us so much about modern media, fandom, and honestly, the elusive nature of truth itself.
Section 1. Hollywood Myths and Cult Classics. Let's see where this all started.
I mean, what's more absurd and charming than the 1981 movie Escape to Victory? You literally have Sylvester Stallone playing alongside global soccer legends in a World War II prisoner of war camp. It's this unique, crazy cinematic trinity. First, you've got Michael Caine bringing all this dramatic weight as the weary captain organizing a match to cover up a mass escape. Then, you throw in Sylvester Stallone, fresh off playing Rocky, as a brash American goalie who actually broke a finger during filming because he insisted on doing the stunts. And to top it all off, the legendary Pele delivering this iconic, show-stopping bicycle kick. It was just pure, unadulterated Hollywood myth-making.
But, that innocent era was never going to last. By the time the cult classic Goal hit screens in 2005, the innocence was definitely fading. Just look at this number. Adidas dropped a cool $50 million into the film's budget and marketing. $50 million. That was the largest corporate grand integration into a film production at the time. Sure, they had FIFA's cooperation and real players, but this was a massive turning point. The story wasn't just about a scrappy underdog anymore. It was a highly calibrated, multi-million-dollar billboard.
Section 2. The Truth Behind the Fiction.
Now contrast that glossy Hollywood ending with the real-life history. The true story of FC's start and the so-called death match is devastating. In 1941, after the invasion of the Soviet Union, some former Dynamo players formed a team while working at a bakery in occupied Kiev. Come 1942, they're forced into a propaganda match against the Luftwaffe. And here's the incredible part. They were told to give the Nazi salute, but they flat out refused. Instead, they shouted their own defiant slogan and went on to win the game 5-3, completely embarrassing their occupiers. But there was no Hollywood escape here, right? Tragically, the team was soon broken up and sent to work camps. It really puts the actual human cost of these historical events into sharp focus.
And listen, the harsh realities of sports aren't just buried in history books. Fast forward to today, and elite athletes are still suffering from immense, crushing pressure. As highlighted in the recent Beckham documentary, we now know that elite athletes face PTSD symptoms at rates comparable to combat veterans. We're talking hovering right around 17 to 22%. The documentary totally broke the mold by showing how David Beckham basically received zero psychological support after the horrific death threats he got following the 1998 World Cup. This absolutely matters because it strips away that indestructible superhero myth we place on athletes.
Moving on to Section 3. The Golden Age of Documentaries.
Okay, so audiences started catching on. They wanted this raw, unvarnished truth, which sparked a true golden age for sports docs. Check out this Rank Vault 2026 watch list. Notice a pattern? The most impactful ones focus on deep, sometimes dark, human elements, not just teams lifting trophies. Sunderland Till I Die is a perfect example. It captured back-to-back relegations, raw fan grief, and club mismanagement. Or Diego Maradona, which dug through 500 hours of unseen footage to show a genius basically crushed by organized crime and obsessive media. The two Escobars tied Colombian football directly to horrifying narco-violence. These films were absolute game-changers because they embraced failure and complex, messy truths.
But that brings us to Section 4, the corporate PR problem. Right, so as soon as these documentaries became massive streaming hits, the clubs woke up and realized they could monetize their own behind-the-scenes access. But that access came with a huge catch. Former Spurs captain Hugo Lloris really hit the nail on the head with this quote. He literally called these club-funded tell-alls a muzzle on the players' freedom of speech. I mean, if the players themselves feel like they can't speak their minds because they're stuck inside a giant in-house commercial, then the whole idea of it being a documentary goes completely out the window.
It really boils down to the stark contrast you see here. On one side, you have your classic PR puff piece. It's funded by the club, the players are muzzled, the narrative is completely controlled, and it's basically just a controversy-free vehicle to sell jerseys. On the other side, you have true documentaries. These are independent, the access is genuinely raw, and they aren't terrified of showing institutional failure. The big takeaway for us here is pretty simple. If the person paying the director is also the subject of the film, you're not watching journalism. You are watching a really long ad.
The irony here is literally off the charts. Clubs are desperate, and I mean desperate, for that global streaming exposure. But the absolute second things get ugly on the pitch, they panic. Wayne Rooney actually pushed really hard for a fly-on-the-wall doc at Plymouth Argyle to boost the club's profile. But what happened? The team sank to the bottom of the championship, Rooney got sacked, and the club instantly scrapped the entire project to avoid embarrassment. It just proves these organizations only want to tell all when the story makes them look flawless.
I love this quote because The Guardian absolutely does not hold back. They called out streaming platforms for prioritizing sheer volume over any actual journalistic insight, calling these shows the most reliably lifeless and propagandistic viewing experience on the internet today. Ouch. But it's true. The platforms know these club-sanctioned docs are repetitive and safe. But honestly, they don't care. The goal isn't to win an Oscar. The goal is to feed the algorithm and keep you subscribed for another month. It totally flattens out what sports journalism can actually be.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Tech, Trends, and New Realism.
So how are filmmakers responding today? In 2026, they're fighting back with what we're calling new realism. They're ditching those clean, sanitized redemption arcs, and they are chasing the friction. Instead of boring, static talking heads, cameras are literally moving like the athletes themselves, putting you right inside the panic and momentum. Films like The Smashing Machine are framing combat as brutal, grueling labor, not some perfectly choreographed dance. You've got Marty Supreme using actual 35mm film to give everything this gritty, lived-in texture. Plus, the way we watch is changing too. There's heavy second-screen integration now, where you're watching the film while simultaneously checking real-time betting apps on your phone. It's an entirely different, intensely immersive beast.
To wrap this all up, I want to leave you with a provocative question. We've traced this incredible journey from the innocent, mythical magic of Pelé, through the dark realities of wartime matches, right into this modern tug-of-war between independent grit and corporate propaganda. So the next time you sit down on your couch to stream a supposedly all-access look at your favorite team, ask yourself, who is really controlling the camera? Are you seeing the messy truth, or are you just watching a beautifully filmed commercial? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking the tough questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.